All right. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. Let's start. All right. So first things first. Point of order. Um. Okay. Questions, points anyone wants to bring up. Anything at all. Your heart's content. Go for it. No. Cool. Okay. Um. Okay. We need to pick out our next activity. So just to go over the rules really quickly, this is a vote of most popular for the type, and then we're going to be waiting some days for people to pick their particular pick of the type of activity. So, for example, like club collaboration, that's a type. What club do you want to collaborate with? Um, and you're gonna be doing that over line. You're gonna be voting. We're gonna be voting for the type right now, but the particular pick is gonna be over line. You can vote for something that has already been voted for. It's just gonna equal like two draw chances basically. You can right now vote for more than one type, but only once for the specific pick for the type. Okay, so again, you can vote for more once. So club collaboration. Who wants to do that one next time? Okay. What about traveling? You guys want to travel somewhere? You have questions about like, well, what sort of clubs could we do, or like where could we go?
Next meeting be? When's the next meeting?
It's always gonna be on Saturday at 4 o'clock.
So it's
Something
next
like
Saturday, the first day of spring break?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, that's true, huh? That's right. Um,
Cause I know I need Saturday,
okay.
so.
Who's staying? I am personally.
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. I guess then we're not gonna have that. All right, that's fine. Okay. Let's just vote for the one after that then, right? Okay. So traveling days, again, we can go to like the beaches, the movies, we can go to the Hatchet Throwing House Club, throw some shit, stab things.
The beach would be nice as long as I don't have to drive.
Yeah, no, sure. It's right into town, so it's not really even that far of a walk. But yeah, so put your hand up if you want to travel. Okay. Yeah.
Beach.
Just
Travel's cool.
3? Bullshit. Okay. Philosophical movie and etc. day, podcasts and such. 2. Okay.
I would be down for philosophical podcast. If you
Uh,
bring yarn and crochet needles or knitting needles, that would be fun. We could have like philosophical knitting day.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an idea. I wouldn't know how to do that.
I know a little bit about knitting.
Okay.
I feel like that might Raiders of the Lost Ark me aging 50 years.
Okay. What about favorite philosopher day? Yeah. Okay. Essay day. If anyone needs to do an essay day, you want to come together with ideas like I got this, I don't know how to do it. Help me. Okay, cool. What about
We
topic?
could do an essay.
Does that mean like an essay assigned for a class and we all work on it, or what?
Or it could be something that you want to write up and like in the later like in the future like submit to a submission opportunity where they have Stan's Idea Fest, other ones. Yeah, so that sort of thing. If you were just like wanting to write something, wanting to come together and sort of thing. Anyways, but yeah, so just the one vote for essay. Okay. And then topic again. Let's do another topic. All right, looks like we're traveling. Cool.
I could do topic.
Yeah.
Okay. We're still doing travel. Don't worry.
Saturday, though, the Saturday after that, at the end of spring break?
Yeah, it's not gonna be this one. So we'll do this.
So it'd be 2 weeks and then we,
two
two Saturdays and then after that week. So really
not the Saturdays, not Saturday afterwards.
next
and then-
Saturday will, I mean, still
Like the end
will
of
be
spring break.
at the end of spring break.
Yeah.
It's still that Saturday, Sunday, and then we go back to school. I don't know if I'll be up here by then.
Okay. Yeah, and then because I don't want to like skip 3 weeks or anything like that. But yeah, and then we'll decide about like the timing for our traveling. You know,
Closer.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and go into the logical fallacy of the week. Spicy.
Yay.
All right. So I kind of want to change this up a little bit, slightly, just to make it a little more straightforward. Oh shit, son of a bitch. Okay, someone throw out the logical fallacy. Where's it go? Just anything, literally anything that comes to mind. Something that we haven't done before already, though.
The logical fallacy where either way you lose.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I think that's not a fallacy, it's more of like a trap of logic, where if you accept the premises, no matter what they are, yeah, I think I think you can do that with logic, but it's not necessarily a failure or fallacy. of
Nah,
logic.
I take that back. Ad hominem.
Ad hominems. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So to describe what that one is, an ad hominem is where your method of argumentation is just through insulting your opponent and attacking their character instead of their argument or the logical validity of that argument. Um, so, so let's go ahead and get into that one. So a few things, and this actually has to do with our topic as well, so it's pretty relevant here. Before getting into this, I want to say really quickly again that there's a reason why we're doing this. The commonness, the commonality, not commonality really, normality of logical fallacies, they're everywhere, is basically really the point. And they can be very destructive to our relationships, to our ability to engage successfully in our environment, where if there's people or actors there who are bad actors or acting in bad faith, to use a term by Sartre, they can be really hard to handle. So getting practice with that, and this is sort of the point of philosophy as well, is that when you engage in philosophical discourse, right, you are practicing, you are honing your ability to be critical and being able to articulate yourself and be cogent. It's the same thing with this sort of thing. So we want to practice these sorts of things because of really honestly how useful they are. So really quickly before we get into this, I want to go over a few things which by and large are pretty much are going to map onto what we're going to get into anyways. So some like things to note before we get into this of a hypothetical, we're going to engage a conversation about it. Some things to know. Establish the validity of experiences and feelings of the interlocutor, which is just the person that you're, Jesus, I was thinking calm here, dyadic. Anyways, the person you're talking to, just straightforwardly, right? There's this other individual, interlocutor. So establish validity of their experiences and feelings. Don't take things personally, right? And this is something that is, I think, really significant in general terms, that, to have your focus of mind, because here's the thing, like when you're engaging in a conversation and it can get like destructive or like volatile, and you're talking with a person that, presumably like you're trying to talk to, right? Like there's purpose, there's reasons there. Things get heated up, and so like your emotions like get high, and all of a sudden you're now arguing from a stance of emotion instead of just like logic and trying to map onto each other in that sort of sense. And all of a sudden it's just sort of like, well, you're wrong because fuck you, and the other person's just like, no, you're wrong, and shit like that. And then it just goes nowhere because people can't map to each other's feelings when they're like inherently not going to, they're just different. Versus logic, we understand who was equally before, sort of thing. That's the great unifier, so to speak. So don't take things personally. Don't try to act like that. And I can get into even to like a bit of free will, but I'll just leave it there for right now. Argument by analogy. Argument by analogy is one of the strongest tactics I think I've like ever come across in an ability to, and this is like part of the Socratic method. So this goes back thousands of years, where when you're arguing with someone and they say like, well, here's the truth, or here's this fact, and you're like, if this holds, let's put this in like into like a different situation where we understand that like the thing that you're trying to say is true about this thing. Like here's like this. So okay, let's put it like this. That like this may not be like the best example. It's just the first one coming to mind. Nazis are bad. I'm being that kid again. Nazis are bad because like murder is bad. And then you're like, okay, so murder is the bad thing here, right? Let's change up the situation. Now let's talk about like if you were to go back in time and like your only option, let's just posit that, your only option was to kill baby Hitler. Like you couldn't like raise him and change him and shit like that. Like he would always be like this violent dictator that would come to power and kill a bunch of people. In that situation, then it's like, if you're gonna say that, it's again, bad example here, but if you're gonna say that like Nazis are bad, if anything actually, think about it though, it's like, it's funny about that. Like we want to say that it's murder is a complex sort of concept, right? If we're gonna say that like Nazis are bad because of murder, there needs to be like an elaboration on that sort of like that system and looking at like their values and a deconstructing sort of thing. That's just sort of like in like general. It's sort of like the humility that comes with philosophy is that you're a lot less eager to just, posit things as being absolutes or clears or like obvious and shit. It's a lot of deconstruction that happens, and then you find like these little bits of nuances and gray areas, and you're just like, okay, it's not actually as clear cut. But now in deconstructing this, I am able to find things that are much more clear cut instead of making a bad argument where there is like, I'm fronting as though it's all this, but then it's like, it's got gray areas though. So like all clear. Anyways though, yeah, so like here's the hypothetical though. Here's the analogy. Go back in time, you're gonna murder baby Hitler, or someone is going to. Is that situation wrong? Because you're saying that like murder is the wrong thing. It's like, yeah, but what about that? It's an analogy. Anyways. So tactics to keep in mind, really useful. Clarify their position. That's really useful because it's actually twofold. It functions as well as like active listening, where you are rephrasing, paraphrasing like their statements and their situation and their perspective. And then on top of that, you're able to make sure that when you talk about like in response to like what they're saying, that you are being accurate in that response. Because then they can come back on you and be like, you weren't listening to me, you were straw manning me, which is another logical fallacy. And then debate ideas, not semantics. This is actually a pretty important one. I remember I was coming across this debate recently talking about critical race theory. Raise your hand in this room if you know what critical race theory is. Yeah? You feel pretty confident about that one?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of. You? Wrong! You're wrong! No, I'll tell you why though. Like there's situations about that.
A whole bunch of
It's
dimensions.
yeah, and things vary so much that if you look, like you're over this in this state and in this school here specifically, we're going to be teaching critical race theory, and they have like a really like different curriculum, and they point to different things. There may be like similar values and stuff like that, but they're going to be pretty radically different than like one on like this other side of the country in this particular school. This is critical race theory, right? Things vary pretty dramatically.
And I would say my definition was fairly broad. Basically, it's just like the history and context of race in America.
Yeah, well, that's that sort of thing though. It's like when you start talking about history, right? Who's writing the history?
Exactly,
Whose
and
perspective is it?
that's why I felt like I had a strong definition, because it was so broad.
And that can be sometimes problematic though, because when you get really
it's not
broad,
helpful.
you're lacking specifics, and all of a sudden it's just vague.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That can be problematic sometimes. I'm not trying to like diss you
No,
or anything like
I
that, or like
definitely,
put you down. Like that's
it's
totally
not, it's not a helpful description, but it is an idea of what it is.
Yeah, like everything that exists is something that is like we could possibly come to like conceive of. Like I don't know. Like we could possibly, not hypothetical. Anyways, I don't know. It's just sort of like that's a really like technically correct, but damn, that was broad. But no, like fair to you. But that's sort of the situation with critical race theory, right? It's very vague. And I was coming across this this debate recently between this, I think it was like black professor or something like that, and oh god, it's that dude who's like Jewish and he's like really annoying and everyone hates him.
Ben Shapiro.
Yes, yes. And yeah, they just kept going back and forth on like this is what critical race theory like is, but then like not being so specific, and it's just like it's terrible, and it's like here's all these reasons against it, and then the other person was like, you're wrong, critical race theory is amazing, and it's like they were just not connecting because they were just using this term, presuming in the conversation that they were talking about the exact same thing, and it just failed horribly. So debate the ideas, right? Get specific, understand, clarify, all that sort of stuff. Same thing. And then one really big important note as well, remember the end goal. Remember what are you trying to get out of this conversation? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to engage with the other person honestly in good faith as opposed to bad faith? And that can help a lot in moment by moment through the conversation and argument, that you're not going to get hung up on this particular point, not taking it personally again, and trying to remember we as a collective are trying to get to something that is better. We together are trying to get to something that we can agree on in its value and its meaning. Okay, so just want to get that over. So we wanted to go with ad hominem. That's interesting. Okay, so who wants to volunteer for fronting this logical fallacy? Cannot be you, Casey.
I was not going to offer.
Fair enough.
What's the fallacy again?
Ad hominem.
Yeah.
Oh,
ad
ad
hominem.
hominem. I could do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're gonna be the person acting out the fallacy, and then we as a group here, which is what I kind of want to go for, is okay. No, I get that. Anyways, we're gonna be working as a group here to try to confront in good faith, not using bad faith, not being like, sophists or like rhetoricians anyways, but acting in good faith in trying to confront this sort of thing, and also like trying to be like as realistic as possible. Don't like be like ridiculous about it, because we want to try to like see if this can go somewhere, right?
Sure.
So yeah, just like to the best of your ability, so to speak.
Now I'm trying to think up insults.
Yeah. So who wants to volunteer a hypothetical fallacy? So like in like specifics. So like like here's this situation, and then if anyone has any ideas, like oh this would be kind of funny if like
This guy has a criminal record, we shouldn't listen to what he has to say.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
bringing that up in a debate, talking about past actions,
That's good.
stuff like that.
So yeah, and how this would function is sort of like you're sort of pretending as though you're talking to one person, and then we're collectively working together as though we are like one mind sort of thing. And we have like sidebars, and I can like say something to you really quickly, and then like you can like put your point back to them, that sort of thing.
Alright, let's do this.
Okay. So yeah, so go for it.
Okay, so I believe in,
Actually, wait, I'm sorry, wait, hold on. Just wait, sorry. What is the actual like meat? What is the substance of the argument? Like it's
Yeah.
one thing to be like, okay, we know like our character, but what are we arguing about though?
Let's talk about prisons.
Prisons? I like it. That's good, yes.
I
relevant
do
as well.
not support the prison industrial complex, because I think that the privatization of prisons is extremely dangerous. It gives like the government a financial incentive. Well, it
Alex,
gives,
to cut you off there, I think there's a miscommunication going on. You're supposed to be the person who is using the logical fallacy against us.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we're
So-
making an argument in here.
You people eat rabbits, you people do not like dogs, you people all have criminal records, you guys have all been in jail. You all have an invested interest in making sure that our prison system does not run smoothly. Why should I trust anything any of you have to say? You have all been in jail, for some pretty horrible crimes too, like armed robbery, so it's like, why?
Okay. That's a flurry. That's something that happens a lot in like debate, like actual like debate. They just land you with so much stuff, and then you're trying to take them on like one at a time, and then they just keep landing on more and more. And it's really hard to do that sometimes. So a
Sorry.
useful tactic in this is to point to like one of them that really stands out and can also like represent, in at least in base value.
You all have a
of,
criminal record. None of you have a vested interest in making sure that our prison system runs smoothly. I'm not gonna listen to anything any of you have to say.
So in this sort of hypothetical, we're trying to talk about, prison reformation, and they're shutting us down, saying that like, but you have a criminal record, Jesus, and therefore they don't want to listen to us.
Would it be
And then
helpful to look at it
Yeah.
like you're saying, you have a criminal record, therefore I'm saying that your opinion, that you're saying that our opinion is biased about prisons.
Yes, your opinion is fine.
And that because we've been to prison, it's not helpful to think about it in that way, because we would try to not be in prison, kind of.
Yeah.
Sure, so there's bias on that front as well. Yeah. Anyways, also you're not on their side.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
shut the
I
fuck up. Okay. For this one, just like try to. There's so much that we could point to. If anyone wants to try to front an argument, a particular point about like prison reformation, right? Like there's this particular thing that's like wrong with the prison system. There's a lot. Like solitary confinement is one. It's a literal torture tactic. This is sidebar, by the way. You're not hearing this. Isolation, and as well the debt that happens and the cycle of poverty that goes on because you're in jail, you can't work a job, you're not getting paid, so your debt's build up, you lose your house, you lose your car, you lose the actual job you had beforehand if you had one, and then you're led right back into poverty, and then that causes more violence and criminal activity, because when people are poor, they're desperate, and when they're desperate, they lash out and they steal things, and there's thievery and there's violence and all that sort of jazz. That's just human psychology.
Can I say one thing? I know that I'm not supposed to hear this, but there is one thing I want to say.
Yeah.
If you wanna help somebody in solitary confinement and really make their day, contact Lifelines to Solitary. It's an organization that's administrated, what's the word? By this wonderful person named Marley Tolay. And, if you write to them, then they will match you up with a pen pal that's currently in solitary confinement.
Oh, okay.
And you can write them letters, and even in some cases, you can write them emails. And it really makes their day, and it really makes them feel happy, and you can really, I actually did that during the pandemic. And you can really make somebody's day, you can really make somebody feel special, you can really make somebody feel happy if you just, get a paper and pen, or use your or use your phone to send them an email, and you can really make somebody's day that way. It's an easy way to make someone feel good. So I definitely recommend it.
I'm a little confused about something. You saying that, because my understanding of it is that in solitary confinement, you're not allowed to have like conversations with anyone. So how is it that you're able to send letters to these people?
They finagle it somehow. I'm not really sure how, but they do.
I wonder
Yeah,
if
no,
it's, if it's some kind of, I wonder if it's some kind of rights thing where you have to be able to have food and have scheduled visits and stuff like that. And get a correspondence, like if, for example, if you're talking to a lawyer and they put you in solitary, they can't keep you from your lawyer. They can't keep you from correspondence and mail. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, that makes
They
sense.
keep you away from people, specifically other prisoners.
Yeah.
Other people in prison.
Yeah.
But,
There's like smaller sections.
but
that makes sense.
maybe, and it probably depends on which prison you're in and the rules there. 'Cause-
That's cool. Yeah. Okay.
Back to the,
Back to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
discussion.
Autumn, were you wanting to say
No
something?
problem.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so solitary confinement is an example, the poverty there is an example, the lack of pay, Jesus Christ, the Emancipation Proclamation, the one exception that was made was for when you're in prison, and it kind of continued, slavery really, so there's that point as well. Anyway, so who wants to front an argument that they think maybe prison shouldn't be so terrible, maybe they should focus on being reforming people and rehabilitate it instead of just punitive punishment.
yeah, many prisons in the United States are for profit, owned by corporations, taking money from the government and also creating value by the prison existing and people being in it and turning a profit because of that. This causes food to be lower quality. It creates incentives to force prisoners to work, and because there's no legal requirement for them to be paid for their labor because they're in prison. They're either not paid at all or paid very little, way below any minimum wage in any place.
So I want you to pick one. I want you to pick one argument. Also, by the way, really quick note, I actually looked this up. It's actually a pretty minority. It's a serious minority of the amount of straight up privatized prisons. But there's something to note about that though. When we construct a prison though, they go to private companies, so there's still money involved in that situation. But as far as there's a prison, it's statistically overwhelmingly majority is actually public, just run by the government. But it's 10 to 20%. It's in between there or something like that.
That's still
actually
a lot.
It is definitely, no, you're totally right. Yeah, and this sort of thing is that America, fun fact, has the highest incarceration rate, per capita in the entire world, higher than El Salvador and any other.
It also has the most
Guatemala and shit.
also has the most number of prisoners by far, but by quantity and by per capita.
Anyway though, so Casey, if you want to front an argument, feel free to just pick one. And then keep in mind the things that we were talking about before. So again, your person that you're talking to here is someone that is really hell bent on you are a prisoner yourself, so you've been in prison yourself. We have, and therefore you can't be trusted. So
Okay.
yeah, try to remember I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it just as sort of a sidebar recommendation. We have this inclination when we come across something that's illogical and that's just false and stuff. We immediately return with this just blunt stick of logic. It's like bad.
Yeah.
Bad. It's emotion. It's ridiculous. Ad hominem, goddammit. And it's not like the most effective or auspicious way to go about the situation in general terms. Which is why when a really good like sort of stepping into it is like slowly, and we have this for active listening too, like giving space. In this sort of context, it's more along the lines of like you want to ease into this sort of like logical follow through and start out with like I'm understanding of like where you're coming from. So if I could say to Angel, sorry, Alex, really quickly, is huh?
You're Alex.
Alexandria, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So let me try to think about like the words really quickly. Um, Sometimes I was thinking about this too with active listening, and I think it actually can totally function here when we're talking about like logical fallacies. Asking like open-ended questions. So if I want to ask like Alex, I'm just curious, just honestly, have you ever had any sort of like experience with criminals in like your personal history where they like did bad things to you?
Do I answer honestly? Or do I answer in character?
Um, I'll leave that one to you. It's your discretion.
Alright, in character, I will say, just for the sake of pretense, that yes. Oh, wait! My grandma actually did get robbed once. So, yes, I have had experiences with criminals doing bad things to me.
Okay.
But I've also visited quite a few petty criminals in the local Santa Ana jail in my hometown.
Okay.
My experiences were mostly positive.
Okay.
With them.
Yeah.
But my grandma did get robbed once.
Okay. Cool. All right. So we'll say that your character responds by saying like, yeah, my grandmother got robbed once.
Yeah.
And the response to that. Does anyone want to take a response on that? Justin, say something.
About what?
Why don't you get involved? So Alex has responded here in character saying that like I fronted her saying like has anyone ever like been a criminal and done something like to you or like hurt you or anything like that, like just being honest. And then Alex responded by saying like, yeah, my grandmother got robbed once. What would you say in that sort of like conversation? What would you say in that context? How would you like confront that?
And I'm anti
As character, yeah.
prison, whatever. The fact that you were robbed doesn't change anything about the prison system.
Okay.
I'm a little confused on what we're trying to argue and what they're trying to argue.
Okay, what are you confused about?
I don't know which side I'm on. I don't know which side you're on.
We're pretending to be this criminal with like a criminal, like we've gone out of the prison system and we're trying to argue for reformation of the prison system because there's like flaws, right? And so it's sort of what we're talking about.
And you are not.
And
I'm against the Reformation.
Yes.
Your character is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Evil.
Alex
Okay.
is fronting a
Okay.
logical fallacy to shut us down, and they have said that like I will not listen to you because you are a criminal and that sort of thing. So, Justin, I want you to try to like put yourself. I know this is like sort of weird. I totally get that, but it's sort of like try to like okay. Let me try to put it like this. Oh, I don't want to get like too deep.
You want me to-
What?
Sorry. Imagine this is a coworker that you kind of started at a job. You're having a conversation like this, maybe after work with a coworker, and you don't want it to be a full-fledged screaming match argument because you have to work with them. Or maybe a boss even would be even better.
Uh-huh.
So there's a implied incentive here to make this a conversation with a person that both of you leave not fully upset and hating each other.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and you don't want Alex here being in a position where it's like, well, I'm just gonna like walk away and not talk to you, and then it's like disrespect, or I'm gonna like just hit you bluntly with a stick of logic, and then it's like I'm disrespected, or like now I'm even angry or anything like that. So it's sort of like there's a power dynamic involved as well, and that's a reality there. So that's the thing that a lot of people come across, and we will certainly in our lifetimes. But as well, it's sort of like I think really in just all honesty, there's a really important point when you come across someone who is like using logical fallacies, and like we heard from Alex himself, right? That like their grandmother was robbed, and this isn't like very uncommon, so specific obviously like that, but like in terms like I've had this bad experience with like a criminal activity, that sort of thing, and so you're understanding that this person is biased, but coming from a place of like harm. So just having that focus of mind on that reality of harm, that like that phrase, hurt people, that can take you a lot away from like your own biases and your own like anger and the screaming match that can ensue, and instead engage like with that sort of purity of mind on like the harm that has happened and not wanting harm in general terms as well for this individual. So what would you say in this sort of context?
Did what I said earlier not count?
No, like totally, but I want you to like not, I like, I want us to at least try to get into the habit of not using a blunt stick of logic and to try to. It's weird because you're not actually in there, and that makes things different. But sometimes, because we're not in that, the emotions are not there as much as well, and like on our part, and those emotions can be like a lot of anger for ourselves and stuff like that. Like you're not a criminal or anything like that, but you're going to be like this other characteristic, and someone's going to be judging you for that, and it's like you can get angry for that sort of stuff. Yeah, what's up, Casey?
Yeah, another thing is, this is something that probably was fairly traumatic to this person's grandmother and to them.
Mhm.
So, if you kind of brush past that and say that doesn't matter, that's not going to feel good to them.
Yeah, and that's the exact point about validating the experiences and the emotions of the other individual. I do want just to like get a little bit into the practice of it because god damn it, it's fucking real. What would you say in just in all honesty, just being real, right? I know this isn't like actually real, but you're being real with yourself, and you're also being real with the other individuals in this room. So what would you say though? In recognition
We're
for
like a boss.
yeah, there's some other power dynamic, or there's a coworker, which even then if there's power because there's a relationship and they have influence over you and your situation environment, and they can like report you to the boss or like that. So yeah, I mean like in the very least, it's something to like keep in mind because then it's like a restraint on my wildness of emotions. You know, it's that like there's like a formality to this sort of thing that you want to keep in mind. Yeah, what's up, Casey?
Or even more broadly, as opposed to like a Twitter debate where you're arguing with someone in a thread and then never see them again, never see them once.
Yeah.
Like this is somebody that you're gonna see a lot, coworker,
Yeah.
in the same club as you,
Yeah.
or like a classmate or something like that where you're gonna see them a lot.
Yeah, social media, it's really easy to disassociate from another person's humanity and just get really angry and just be like, you're just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. Let me just, strange rant and shit. But yeah, so what would you honestly say? Like, really put yourself as much as you can, like, honestly, into that position. Like, what would come to your mind? What would come to your heart?
I would probably just say that sucks that your grandma was robbed and not want to argue. With the boss?
Okay, that's fair. I would only say that like the sort of context with that is that like, and there's so many different relationships we put this to as well. But you can't like get rid of this person. Like they're actually like in your life, and on top of that, if you like were to walk away and just be like, okay, like have a good one, there can be a disrespect. There can be like I'm not like worthy enough of like your attention or words, and I was giving that to you, like, and I'm angry and I'm attached and I'm like venting right now, effectively, and then you're just gonna like walk away and be like, you're not worth my time. There's a disrespect involved. So like, fair enough. Like you have like every right to walk away, but in the analysis of and understanding like what the situation is, and in so many different other situations that like can be basically the same thing in consequence, um, it's like, would you want to walk away? Like understanding that people do have influence over you in your situation, and if you disrespect someone, it can like bite you in the ass later, sort of thing. So I'll leave that to you, but at least right now, Autumn, what would you want to say?
I guess I would maybe say something like, well, obviously that was a traumatic event for your grandmother. The prison system is also traumatic, some like road there, like
Connection
yeah,
between those
like
two.
should this person's life be ruined over one event that was traumatizing for you, but like the entire rest of their life should be ruined over that? I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, we'll go ahead first, Casey. Go for it.
Yeah, I like connecting that to talking about this person we found a specific example of a prisoner that isn't me, or somebody who's convicted of a crime, or we don't know. So I would try to say, oh, that's a terrible thing that happened. Do you know what happened to the person? Follow that thread. If they were arrested, if there's a trial, if they were imprisoned, what happened there?
Open-ended questions.
And yeah, and therefore now we're talking about the system. We talk about the prison system, and there's an inroad to that kind of back into the conversation, while following something that is somehow connected to this person's experience.
I would, a note about that at least, and it might kind of relate to like what you're saying as well, but, be careful about that sort of approach, because what can happen is that like, you're gonna follow down this road path, and it's like, you can totally do this, but you just gotta be careful about it, so you're telling me like your life story, your situation, like what's happened to you, and then you like connect it to like, so what happened to the person eventually, they were in the system, and like this particular sentence happened to them or something like that. And then you could say, ideally, you could say like, that kind of reminds me of like this friend that I had in prison who had like a similar situation. Like he was a good, like the person who like